And here's some examples of, fairly early government campaigns that are nationally based. Norway had TRIM, Belgium, Sport at School, Germany, Sportsbeziehen. Anybody German who can spell it? Yeah.
Sportabzeichen.
There you go. That's much better. Canada had Participation, and one thing I really enjoyed about that one is they came out with a series of posters. And the posters were like the Mona Lisa, why is she smiling? And you look about at the bottom and she's got like a jogging suit on as she's running. I don't know if you've seen those, but another one was a guy sitting on a couch, and he's sitting here and his gym shorts are at the end of the couch, and it says, just put one leg in the other, and that kind of thing, to appeal to the broad general area. Action sport out of UK, the Netherlands actually was interested in foreigners in sport, so there was a bit of a tourism emphasis. And then France said sport is much better in a sports club. And that was kind of differentiating from, the heavy-duty training that sports clubs, were available. Okay. And then we saw even more dramatically, and this would be my favorite country to go to at this point, being used to build bridges between countries, because the effective sport sanctions in South Africa yielded a decline of the apartheid issue, and then set up a white paper for developing a sport and leisure and education for all concept. Also, we look at sports still operating within a set of values that retain that gloss of idealism or ideology and stress meritocracy, excellence, and fairness. So it's seen as a window into a country in a lot of ways by the way it's viewed, and it's a very visible way of viewing. We've also seen a change from, kind of a traditional power structure exercise model to active living campaigns that broaden the term of exercise. We've also seen it as also a failure of the cultural policy and resulting in exclusion of groups. And we've also seen it creating markets for sport and leisure management so that it's a way of defending policies to provide for social welfare. So there are a lot of different ways we've seen this enact itself through the policies themselves. There's a major study done by DaCosta and Miragoya that involved 36 countries that have been that are members of Sport for All, and this provided for us a very good basis to look at cross-country comparison, at least at the very basics. And they were more descriptive in nature. This is a book called Sport for All, and it was helpful in reading to really get a sense of connectivity with the government policies that affect sport and leisure. It was a good initial study. The key findings provided support for us to look at the context or environmental factors that might we need to be aware of in visiting countries and gathering data. Also, Houlihan's policy framework policy has begun to inform us post-hoc, after all the data had been gathered, because the data had been gathered, at least most of it, around the time the article came out in 2005. And we had a couple other countries, but we stuck to our methods. And it was an identification of the 5 major networks for analyzing policy, but also one type was one he distilled and felt that the Advocacy Coalition network analysis, and I'll get into that a little bit later, but generally, what are the sport and leisure and recreation supporting groups? And how do we look at them in a systematic way to see what they're doing in a particular country? Now, we can do this post-hoc because we did go to groups just like it, and that's why it's similar. In a qualitative analysis, you're always allowing yourself emerging design. So in this case, we can incorporate some of these facets into the way we analyze these countries. And current way, as I said, can be handled post-hoc, and will be. The model for comparison followed constant comparative methodology. So as we were moving forward, as I was moving forward along with the colleagues, and I'll share with you how we did this, we were constantly meeting and comparing and also looking at if any of these countries grouped according to any kind of modeling that might differentiate them as groups, okay? And then the results in the past that we looked at were predominantly qualitative, but this study we wanted was quantitative on purpose, to get a sense of what was really going on in these countries and to help us inform on more qualitative studies. And so we were able to incorporate the context of the different continents that we visited, historical analysis, and institutional descriptions, which wound up being quite a bit of documentary analysis, a huge amount. So I'm going to carry you through a little bit of this, how I got interested in it, and we'll get right into a little bit more of the study itself. It wasn't until 1983, really, that it became interesting to the International Olympic Committee to actually deal with the whole idea of mass sport. So in 1983, these countries came together and formed the 1984 International Sport for All Symposium, its first. And it was done at the Los Angeles Olympics. I happened to be in California at the time, so I went to it. And Joe Bannon from University of Illinois had us all come and be kind of recorders for the different people who came from these countries. And so from that, I got interested, and then at that point, that wasn't really what I was doing at Cal Poly. So I just had this information and interest. But when I came to IU in 1993, I started off with a Sport for All resource library where I actually asked these countries to provide a variety of information. So they sent a lot of things to help, inform the study. And then I met Pan Zhiwei from China, and he was at the time in international relations at Beijing Sport University. Do you know him? Sort of? Yeah. And then he was in charge of marketing and logistics for the Beijing Olympics. But he got his master's in recreational sport, and I was his advisor. So we started talking about this issue, and I said, gee, why don't you do a study? So for his master's project, he did an international study of the database from the TRIM. It's a Trim and Fitness International Sport Association, and it's an international professional association of those sport for all people. So he did the study, had about 120 countries, and he got an 84-country return rate, and it informed us about some of the themed areas, like the role of tradition, and the role of any kinds of groups that might be excluded, or philosophical issues, or the power structure. We got some general information. And then I had a chance to go to China for a month, and I taught recreational sport to about 95 Chinese students who were juniors and seniors. And I had a chance to really kind of delve into at least that particular country. And I called it an informal case study because I studied the context and then the sport operation and got to know a little bit more about the government structure. And in China, as you may well know, particularly at Beijing Sport University, that structure is right there. This is the Beijing Sport University is the sport delivering educational organization, and the whole Chinese government is right there. In fact, when I taught the course, I didn't know it, but there were 5 Army guys in the class to see what I was having to say. And I didn't know that at all until we had like a get-together at the end where we had karaoke and a dinner and dancing, and all the guys showed up with the uniforms. And so I realized I had been watched, and they were great, they were great students, they contributed and everything, but I thought they were students and they weren't. A little different culture, and that was fine. So then I'm just carrying you through, and we gathered data. I went on my first sabbatical for IU in 2000 and collected data from Australia and Hong Kong. Then Melissa Coaches, who's a graduate student here, a master's student, collected data in England. And in that case, I worked with her very closely on the process. We met. She knew what to do. She went in there and did that. Then I have several other students collect data in the next year. I went on a short-term faculty exchange for a month and collected data in Costa Rica, but Carmen Grace Salazar-Salas, who had gotten her PhD from here, helped me when I went there, so that she's at the University of Costa Rica, and we worked together on that. And then Jinwoo Ho collected data from Korea. Karina King, and they both collected data from Singapore. And then Agnes Kovacs collected data from Hungary. And those three students got their doctorates here in leisure behavior. And let's see, I think Jinwoo and Karina are up at IUPUI, so they're still available. And both of them did presentations at the AFRICON conference on their case analysis of that particular case. So they had that, authorship and opportunity to move forward. And then Agnes had to go back to Hungary for 2 years, but I understand she's gotten married, she's in Tennessee, and she just had a baby. So I'm going to re-engage her if she wants to do some more work there. And then we had, I guess I'd say, an opportunistic opportunity to collect data from Kyrgyzstan, and I sure hope I spelled that right. I never can get it right, so somebody tell me to get it. I mean, it didn't come up red, but I was worried. Because we had a youth sport program that brought a variety of professionals from Kyrgyzstan over to us. And during that time, I had interviews with those individuals. Then we had more countries. In this case, I was able to get a Leisure Research Institute grant, and that funded a Canada and United States study where I brought in Tom and also Austin Anderson and Brian Chen, who I think is in Applied Science now, because he was getting a double master's. And we went over to, I think it was Tom, Brian, and I went to Washington. And so from here, this is where this picture is taken, and we're going to put it on a website. But basically, we're at the President's Council on Sport and Fitness office, and we were meeting with Penny Royal, who was the Health and Human Services person, and also the executive director of the President's Council. So we were just getting ready at that point to meet. And gosh, they have flags, and they come in uniform, and it's pretty fun. And then I had a chance to go over to Turkey, and so Umut Kisim, who was a soccer star from IU, and he's a professor, helped me collect data from the Turkish representatives who are involved in sport. And then Token Barnhouse, who got his master's here, collected data in Guam because he's part of a military recreation process. And now he's over in Italy, so I think we're going to get him to collect data over there. And he keeps in touch all the time. And then China, we had a scholar from China, Tian Hui, who was here for 6 months, and she decided she'd like to work with me, so she collected data on China. And so that's what we have, we think, right? We're currently working 13 countries, and those are the areas that we're currently working on.